The first call came on a Tuesday, just as I was about to wrap up my work for the day. My office, a cozy space with more books than furniture, felt like a sanctuary from the relentless march of time. At 53, I'd learned to appreciate the quiet moments. My wife, Sarah, had passed away 5 years ago, and with my son, Mark, now an adult and ready to start his own life, the silence had become a constant companion. The caller ID showed Mark's name, but a quick glance at the clock told me he was probably just calling to chat. It had been a long day, and I was looking forward to nothing more than a simple meal and an evening with a good book. I answered the phone, a small smile already forming on my face. "Hey son, everything all right?" I asked, my voice betraying the fatigue I felt. "Yeah, Dad, everything's great." Mark's voice was full of a nervous energy I hadn't heard in a long time. "Listen, I'm calling with a bit of news. Ashley and we've been talking about the wedding and about some of the arrangements." Mark was getting married to Ashley in a few months. Ashley was a lovely young woman, smart and ambitious. A little too ambitious, maybe, but I'd always tried to see the best in people. Mark had been head over heels for her since they met in college. I was happy for him, truly. He deserved to be happy. "Okay," I said, a little confused. "What about them? Is there a problem with the venue or something?" No, nothing like that. It's a little more personal." There was a pause. I could hear Ashley's voice in the background, a low murmur of conversation that I couldn't make out. Mark cleared his throat, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, as if he were trying to soften a blow. "Ashley's family has a really big family. Lots of them are flying in for the wedding. She wants to make sure all of her family gets to be in the photos. You know, for the photo album and all that." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "That makes sense. It's her big day, after all." "Yeah, well, we've been thinking about the photos, the formal ones, and we've come up with a list of the people who'll be in them. It's mostly family. Her family, I mean. The core group. And me, of course." My stomach tightened. I had a feeling where this was going. "And you, Dad," Mark said, his voice hesitant now. "We decided it would be better if you weren't in the formal family photos." The words hit me with a force I hadn't expected. I felt a sudden coldness, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. My hand gripped the phone tightly. I couldn't speak. "Dad?" Mark's voice was a plea. "Are you there?" "I'm here," I managed to say, the words a hoarse whisper. My throat felt dry. I don't understand." "Why not?" "It's not personal, Dad. Ashley's family is really big, and they have all these traditions. Their family photos are really important to them. They have all these specific poses and groups they want to do. Ashley's family photographer is coming all the way from California just for this. And, well, you know how it is. It's her day." I felt a pang of resentment. "So where does that leave me, Mark? Am I just on the sidelines? What about our family photos, the ones we took when you were a kid? Do those mean nothing?" "Dad, that's not fair. This is different. This is about our new family. Ashley's family is really close, and they have this thing with their pictures. It's important to her, and I want to make her happy." "I understand you want to make her happy, son, but what about me? Where do I fit in all of this?" "You're the father of the groom, Dad. You're going to be at the wedding. You'll be there for the candids. You'll be in the photos, just not the formal ones. It's not a big deal." He said it with such casual indifference, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. As if the father of the groom being excluded from the formal wedding photos was just a minor detail. My mind raced. Was it really just about her big family? Or was this something more, a sign of things to come? I thought back to the past few months. Ashley had been increasingly involved in everything. She had opinions on every single aspect of the wedding, and Mark, in his eagerness to please her, seemed to be following her lead blindly. I had always been close with my son. Since his mother passed, it had been just the two of us. We were a team. I thought we had a strong bond, but with every passing day I felt like I was being pushed further and further away. "I see," I said, my voice now calm but laced with a bitterness I couldn't hide. "Well, if that's what you both want. It's your wedding. I suppose I don't have a say in it." "Thanks, Dad," he said, the relief evident in his voice. "I knew you'd understand. Ashley says thank you too. We'll talk soon, okay? Love you. Love you too, son, I replied, and hung up the phone. I sat there in the silence, the receiver still in my hand. The quiet I had once cherished now felt heavy and suffocating. The late afternoon sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the room. I felt a profound sense of sadness, not just for the exclusion from the photos, but for the slow, quiet erosion of my relationship with my son. The wedding, which I had once looked forward to with such anticipation, now felt like a milestone I was attending as a guest, not a participant. But as the initial hurt subsided, it was replaced by a strange mix of determination and defiance. If they wanted to play games, fine. I wasn't going to be a victim. I had always taught Mark that true strength comes from resilience, from standing up for what you believe in, and from taking control of your own destiny. The idea that I was just a minor player in his life now, that my presence was so easily dismissed, fueled a fire in me. I stood up, walked to my desk, and picked up my notebook. It was time for a new project, something big, something that would remind me, and maybe one day, Mark, of the man I was. I needed a distraction, something to pour my energy into. My mind went back to the old house I had seen for sale a few weeks ago, the one in a quiet neighborhood Mark and Ashley had talked about. They had even gone so far as to say that one day they hoped to be able to afford a place like it. They had no idea I'd been quietly looking into real estate as a personal investment. Now, as I opened my laptop and began to do some research, a new, audacious plan started to form in my mind. The old feeling of purpose and control, the one that had helped me build a successful life and raise my son, was returning. The photos were just the beginning. The real story was about to unfold, and they had no idea. The real game had just started, and I was going to be in it. The next day the hurt was still there, but it was buried under a layer of resolve. I had a new mission. After a restless night, I spent the morning doing what I did best, research and planning, the house on Maple Street. I remembered Mark and Ashley pointing it out to me during a Sunday drive, their eyes wide with a shared dream. "One day, Dad," Mark had said, a hopeful lilt to his voice. "One day, a place just like that." It was a two-story colonial with a big front porch and a sprawling backyard, the kind of house where you could see kids playing and holidays being celebrated. It had a certain timeless charm, and I had to admit, I'd been captivated by it myself. I called my realtor Jim, a friend since college and a man who knew the real estate market in our city like the back of his hand. "Jim," I began without preamble, "remember that house on Maple Street, the one you mentioned was back on the market? I want to make an offer, a good one, a fast one." Jim was silent for a moment. "The Miller place? It's a beauty, but it's been sitting for a while. The asking price is a little high, and there are some structural things to consider. Are you sure you're ready to get back into the market? I thought you were happy with the condo." "I am happy here, Jim. This is different. This is an investment. I want to buy it outright. No loans, no fuss. And I want to close as quickly as possible. Discretion is key. I don't want anyone to know about this until the deal is finalized." "Buying a house cash and fast? That's my kind of client," Jim chuckled. "But what's the rush? This sounds a little out of character for you, my friend." I paused. I couldn't tell him the real reason. Not yet. "Let's just say I have a feeling about this place, a very strong feeling. And I want to get a head start on a new project. I'll make a fair offer, but I want to make it clear that I'm ready to move right away. Do whatever you need to do." Within a few hours, Jim called me back with good news. My offer had been accepted. The seller was an elderly woman who wanted to move closer to her grandchildren and was thrilled by the no-hassle, all-cash offer. We set a closing date for 3 weeks from then. With the first major step completed, my mind started to fill with possibilities. I began to sketch out renovation plans, drawing a new layout for the kitchen and thinking about the landscaping. I'd always loved working with my hands, and the idea of transforming this house, making it new and vibrant, filled me with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since Sarah passed. Over the next few weeks, I avoided talking to Mark about the wedding as much as possible. When he called, I kept the conversations short and focused on generalities. He seemed to notice the distance, but didn't press the issue. He was so consumed with wedding planning, with Ashley's demands, that he didn't seem to have the time or energy to dig deeper. Ashley's family was arriving from out of state for a series of pre-wedding events, and every conversation revolved around what she wanted, what her mother had planned, and who was attending which event. The day of a big pre-wedding dinner arrived. I was getting ready, putting on a suit that felt a size too big, a stark reminder of the weight I had lost. Mark called. "Hey, Dad. Just a quick reminder," he said, his voice cheerful. "Ashley's family is all here. They're super excited. Just wanted to remind you about the photos. They're going to have a professional photographer there too, just for the dinner. He's capturing all the moments." I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. "Okay, son, what about them?" "Well, Ashley and I agreed that we want to keep the dinner photos focused on her family. We'll do a few group shots with them and their close friends. It would be great if you could just kind of hang back. We'll get a few candid shots of you later, don't worry." It was a gentle reminder, but the message was clear. I was once again on the periphery, just a spectator, a silent partner. My anger flared, but I held it in check. I had a new mantra. Focus on the house. "Understood, Mark. I'll be there soon," I said, and hung up. I arrived at the restaurant, an elegant place downtown, and was immediately swallowed by the crowd. Ashley's family was everywhere, their laughter loud and their conversation lively. I saw Mark, beaming, talking with Ashley's father, a tall, imposing man named David. David had a firm handshake, but his eyes were distant. He and his wife, Carol, were at the center of the festivities, their presence dominating the room. I found a quiet corner and ordered a drink. I watched as the photographer, a slick-looking man with a large camera, directed various groups for photos. "Ashley and the girls!" he'd shout. "Ashley and the family matriarchs! All the cousins on Ashley's side!" I felt invisible. My heart ached, but I held my head high. I made my way to the buffet table, grabbing a plate and trying to seem busy. A few people from Ashley's family gave me polite but fleeting smiles. I knew none of them. I was a ghost at my own son's pre-wedding dinner. Mark walked up to me, a small frown on his face. "You all right, Dad? You look a little down." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, son, just a little tired. Enjoying the food. You and Ashley look great." He seemed to accept that. "Thanks, Dad. Ashley's mom has some big plans for the wedding. She's really running the show. It's a little overwhelming, but Ashley loves it." I just nodded, my heart sinking further. Mark was so wrapped up in making Ashley happy that he couldn't see how his own father was being sidelined. He couldn't see the silent pain I was feeling. As the dinner ended, I made a point of saying a quick goodbye to Mark and Ashley, making an excuse about having a long day. I wanted to get out of there. I needed to get back to my sanctuary, back to my plans for the house. The drive home was quiet. The city lights blurred into a streak of color. I thought about the house on Maple Street, about the big front porch and the promise it held. It wasn't just an investment anymore. It was a statement, a declaration. It was a place I would build for myself, for a future that was mine, a future where I wasn't just a background character in someone else's story. I pulled into my garage, the quiet hum of the engine a welcome sound. Inside, I went straight to my office, to my laptop. The closing date was getting closer. It was time to start planning the demolition and the renovation. This house was my project, my purpose, and they had no idea. The photos, the exclusion, it all just made me more determined. They had taken my place in their family. I was going to build my own. The 3 weeks leading up to the closing felt like an eternity. I was a man obsessed. Every spare moment was dedicated to the house. I had meetings with a contractor, an architect, and a landscaping company. The plans were meticulous, the budget was carefully calculated, and the vision was clear. I wasn't just fixing up a house, I was building a home, a sanctuary, a monument to my own resilience. Mark and Ashley were oblivious. They were a whirlwind of wedding planning, fittings, and last-minute details. Our conversations, when they happened, were surface level, all about wedding invitations and seating charts. I had stopped asking how they were doing, and started asking what new crisis Ashley had created. It was a passive way of distancing myself, a defense mechanism against the constant feeling of being an outsider. The day of the closing, I signed the final papers and received the keys. The feeling of the cold metal in my hand was exhilarating. It wasn't just a house key, it was the key to my future. I drove straight to the house, parked in the driveway, and just sat there for a few minutes taking it all in. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light on the old brick. The house was quiet, still, waiting. I got out of the car, walked up the front steps, and put the key in the lock. As I opened the door, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. I imagined Mark and Ashley walking through this very door, their faces filled with hope. I had come to this house with a certain bitterness, but now a new feeling was taking root. A strange mix of sadness and hope. Sadness for the relationship with my son that was slipping away, and hope for a new chapter in my own life. The next day, the renovation began. The sound of hammers and saws filled the air. My small condo felt empty and hollow now, and I spent most of my time at the house, a hard hat on my head, watching my plans come to life. The demolition of the old kitchen, the tearing down of a wall to create an open-concept living area, the replanting of the neglected garden. Every single step was a small victory. A week later, I got a call from Mark. His voice was frantic. "Dad, I have to talk to you. Can you come over?" I knew something was wrong. His voice was tight, stressed. "What is it, son? Is everything okay?" "No, it's not. It's about the house. Ashley and we were just at the bank. We're trying to get a pre-approval for a mortgage, and they said our credit scores are a problem. We have too much debt, and we don't have enough for a down payment. We can't afford a house right now." I felt a pang of sympathy, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of foreboding. He was calling me because he needed something, not because he wanted to talk. "That's a shame, son. I'm sorry to hear that. What do you want me to do?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. We were hoping you could help us with the down payment, just a loan. We'll pay you back. We'd be so grateful, Dad. This is our dream, our future. I leaned against the wall of the house I was building, the sound of a drill in the background, a stark contrast to the silence on the phone. My heart was in my throat. This was the moment of truth. He wanted me to give him money, to help them buy a house that they had shut me out of. The irony was almost unbearable. "Mark," I said, my voice low and steady, "I can't." "What? Why not?" "Dad, please. This is so important to us. We're going to pay you back. I promise." "I'm not saying you won't pay me back, son. I'm saying I can't. I've made a large investment recently, a very large one. I'm not in a position to help you with a down payment." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear Ashley's muffled voice in the background, sharp and accusatory. Mark's voice, when he finally spoke, was cold. "What kind of investment? You didn't tell me you were doing this." "It's a personal investment, Mark. It's my money. I don't have to tell you everything I do with it. Just like you don't have to tell me who you're inviting to your wedding photos." The last part was a sharp, cutting remark, and I knew it was a cheap shot. But I couldn't help myself. The hurt was too deep. "Dad, that's so unfair," he said, his voice rising in anger. "You're bringing that up now. This is our future we're talking about. Are you punishing me for the wedding photos? Is that what this is?" "No, son. This isn't a punishment. This is just life. You make choices, and those choices have consequences. You chose to start a new life, a new family, and you chose to do it without me. That's your choice. This is mine." I could hear Ashley shouting in the background, something about how I was a selfish old man. I closed my eyes, the words a knife in my chest. The feeling of abandonment was overwhelming. "I'm sorry, Mark. I can't help you. I have to go now. I have a lot of work to do." I hung up the phone before he could reply, my hand shaking. I walked into the gutted kitchen, the walls open to the wooden studs, the floor covered in dust. I picked up a hammer and started to swing, the sound of metal on wood a release for the pent-up frustration and pain. The truth was, I felt terrible. The whole reason I had bought this house was for them. A grand gesture to show them that I was still there, that I still cared, that I was a part of their future. But their actions had pushed me into a corner, and I had acted out of pride and hurt. The promise I had made to myself to rebuild my life was now intertwined with a lie. I had lied to my son, and the lie was going to get bigger before it got better. The fallout from that phone call was immediate and painful. Mark stopped calling. He didn't reply to my texts. The silence between us was a chasm, wider and deeper than anything I had ever experienced. I found myself checking my phone constantly, a foolish hope that he would reach out, that he would understand. But the phone remained silent. Ashley was more direct. She posted a series of passive-aggressive messages on social media, thinly veiled complaints about selfish people and family who don't support you when it matters most. It was immature and hurtful, but it also confirmed my suspicions that she was the one fueling this fire. Mark, my son, my sensible, kind son, was being manipulated, and I was powerless to stop it. The wedding day was a little over a month away. The renovation of the house was in full swing. I had hired a team of skilled workers, and the progress was remarkable. The old, worn-out house was transforming into a modern, beautiful home. The new kitchen cabinets were installed, the floors were laid, and the walls were painted a warm, inviting beige. The garden was a lush oasis, with new flower beds and a small patio area. Every time I went there, I felt a sense of pride. This was my work. This was my legacy. One Saturday morning, I was at the house, a paint roller in my hand, putting the final coat on the living room wall. It was a beautiful, sunny day, and the house was filled with light. There was a knock on the door. I put the roller down and opened it. It was Mark. He looked tired, his eyes shadowed with stress. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, not the perfectly tailored clothes he usually wore. He looked like the Mark I used to know, the boy who used to come to me for advice. "Dad," he said, his voice flat, "we need to talk." I stepped back, letting him in. He looked around, his eyes wide with surprise. "What is all this? I thought you were in a financial bind." "I'm not in a bind, son. I just said I had a large investment. I'm renovating this place. It's a project." "A project?" he asked, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You chose a project over helping your own son, after everything I've done for you?" "What have you done for me, Mark?" I asked, my own voice a little too sharp. "You've shut me out. You've let your fiancée dictate our relationship. You've told me I'm not a part of your life anymore." He flinched. The truth was a painful thing. "That's not true, Dad. I was just trying to keep the peace. Ashley's family is very traditional. It's hard to explain." "I understand, Mark, but at some point, you have to decide who you are and what you stand for. You have to decide if you're going to be a man or just an extension of someone else's life." He looked away, his eyes scanning the room, his jaw tight. He saw a framed picture on the mantel, a picture of Sarah and me on our wedding day. A wave of sadness washed over his face. "This is a beautiful house, Dad," he said, his voice soft now. "It's exactly what Ashley and I wanted. We drove by here all the time. We talked about it. It was our dream." "I know," I said, a lump forming in my throat. "I know it was your dream. That's why I bought it." He turned to me, his brow furrowed in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I bought it for you, son. I bought it as a wedding gift. I was going to surprise you after the honeymoon. It was going to be my way of showing you that, no matter what, I'm still your father and I'll always be there for you." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Mark's eyes widened, a look of shock, followed by a slow dawning of realization. He looked from me to the picture of his mother, to the beautifully renovated house around him. You did this for us," he whispered, his voice full of disbelief. "Yes, son, I did. But after the way you treated me, the way you let Ashley exclude me, the way you just stood by and watched, I was so hurt. I couldn't just give it to you. I had to have my dignity. I had to let you know that I wasn't a doormat." Tears welled up in his eyes. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I never should have let Ashley talk to me like that. I should have stood up for you. I was so caught up in the planning. I didn't see what I was doing to you." He walked over and hugged me, a tight, firm hug that I had been longing for. The bitterness, the resentment, the anger. It all melted away. This was my son, the boy I had raised. He was here, and he was remorseful. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like a father again. I was wrong, Dad. I was so wrong. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this house. It's not about deserving, Mark. It's about family. It's about love. And it's about second chances. This house is still yours. Okay, it's yours and Ashley's. It's your home, and I want you to be happy here. He pulled away, his face streaked with tears. Thank you, Dad. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say, but I need to talk to Ashley. She needs to know what she did, and what you did, and she needs to apologize to you. I nodded. It wasn't about the apology. It was about him, about my son, finally seeing the truth. Go to her, son. Go. The wedding is in a month. You still have time to make things right. You still have time to choose your family. Both of them. He nodded, hugged me again, and turned to leave. I watched him go, a mix of hope and anxiety swirling in my chest. I had revealed my secret. The ball was now in their court, and I had a feeling this wasn't the end of the story, but just the beginning of a whole new chapter. The next few days were a blur of nervous anticipation. Mark didn't call, and I knew he was having a difficult conversation with Ashley. I imagined the confrontation, the arguments, the tears. I knew Ashley well enough to know she wouldn't take this news lightly. The fact that I had not only bought their dream house, but had done so while they were shutting me out, was a huge blow to her ego. It changed the entire dynamic of our relationship. I was no longer a powerless old man. I was a man with a secret, a man with power, and a man who was willing to use it. I spent my days at the house, working alongside the crew, helping with the finishing touches. The house was almost ready. The floors were polished, the walls were painted, and the furniture was being delivered. I had chosen a neutral palette, a blank canvas for them to fill with their own memories and their own style. It was a sign of my surrender, my willingness to let go of the past and let them build their future. On Friday, my phone rang. It was Mark. His voice was tired, but there was a new resolve in it. "Dad," he said, "can you meet us for dinner? Ashley and we need to talk to you. We need to talk to you." "Of course, son. Where?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Our usual place," he said, and I knew he meant the small Italian restaurant we'd been going to since he was a little boy. It was a place full of memories, a place where we were just a father and a son, without the complication of fiancés or family politics. I arrived at the restaurant first and sat at our usual booth. The smells of garlic and tomato sauce filled the air, and I felt a sense of calm. This was my home turf, my safe space. When Mark and Ashley walked in, I saw the tension in their faces. Mark's arm was around Ashley's shoulders, a protective gesture, but her posture was rigid. She was angry. They sat down across from me, the silence between us heavy. The waiter came and took our order, a familiar ritual, but the atmosphere was anything but. Mark started. "Dad, Ashley and I have been talking. A lot. About everything. About the photos. About the house. About everything." "I know, son," I said, my voice gentle. "I'm sorry if I caused any of this. I was hurt." Ashley cut in, her voice cold and controlled. "Hurt? You deliberately went out and bought our dream house just to spite us. You've been playing some kind of game, a sick game, and you used your own son as a pawn." The accusations stung. "Ashley, that's not true. I bought that house as a gift. It was a gesture of love. You have to believe me." "A gift? A gift with a condition, you mean? You just told Mark you bought it for us after you found out we couldn't afford it. You were just waiting for us to fail so you could swoop in and be the hero. You wanted to make us look bad," she said, her voice rising. "Ashley," Mark said, his voice firm, "that's not fair. My dad bought that house before we even had a problem with the down payment. He did this for us. He kept it a secret because he was hurt, because of what we did." Ashley glared at him. "He hurt you too, Mark. He refused to help us when we needed it. He let us think we were on our own." "He did, yes?" Mark said, his voice now calm and measured. "And he was wrong to do that. But he was hurt, Ashley. Can't you see that? We hurt him first. We excluded him from the most important day of my life. We made him feel like he was nothing. He reacted out of pain, just like you're reacting now, out of pain and pride. Ashley's face was a mask of rage. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and, was it a hint of shame? So what do you want? Do you want an apology? Do you want me to beg for your forgiveness? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I didn't include you in the photos. I'm sorry that my family is so big that you got left out. I'm sorry that you felt like we were excluding you. It was a hollow apology, a list of grievances disguised as a confession. It wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want an apology. I wanted a change of heart. I wanted her to see me as a person, as Mark's father, not just a nuisance. I looked at Mark, his face a silent plea. He wanted me to accept it. He wanted me to make peace. He wanted his life to be simple again. I sighed, and for a moment I considered just leaving, but I had come this far, I had to see this through. Ashley, I said, my voice low, the house is not a prize to be won. It's a gift with no conditions. The only thing I want from you is for you to treat my son with respect, and to treat me like a person who loves his son more than anything in this world. She looked at me, her gaze unwavering. She didn't say anything, but I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe it was a flicker of understanding, or maybe it was just a flicker of a different kind of anger. Mark took her hand. Dad, we've talked about the photos, and we want you to be in them, all of them, the formal ones, the family ones, all of them. It was a mistake, I was wrong, I'm so sorry. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. It wasn't about the photos anymore, it was about his words. He was finally standing up to her. He was finally choosing me. Thank you, son, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Ashley remained silent, her face a mask. I knew this wasn't the end. The battle for my son's heart was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a long way to go, but we had taken the first step, and it was all thanks to a little house on Maple Street. The atmosphere in the weeks leading up to the wedding was a strange mix of tense politeness and fragile reconciliation. After our dinner, Ashley had been different. She wasn't warm or apologetic, but she wasn't openly hostile either. It was a cold truce. She had agreed to include me in the formal wedding photos, but her demeanor was a constant reminder that this was not her idea. She did it for Mark and for the house. Mark, on the other hand, was back to being my son. He called me every day, eager to talk about the wedding, the house, anything. He would tell me about the small victories he had won with Ashley, the compromises he had made. He had managed to convince her to let me help with some of the wedding preparations, which was a small but significant step. We had spent a Saturday afternoon together, picking out the groomsmen's gifts, and it felt like old times. The house was ready, the renovation was complete, and the final details were in place. I had a grand vision. I would give them the keys at the rehearsal dinner. It would be a big public announcement, a clear signal to Ashley's family that I was not a doormat, and that Mark had a father who loved him, a father who was not only a man of his word, but a man of means. It was a small act of vengeance, a way of getting back a little of my dignity. The day of the rehearsal dinner was a perfect autumn evening. The restaurant was elegant. The air was filled with the murmur of conversation and the clinking of glasses. Ashley's family was there in full force, and they looked at me with a new curiosity. They had heard about the gift, of course. Word travels fast. They were no longer dismissive. They were calculating. I found myself in a conversation with Ashley's father, David. He was a man of few words, a man who measured his words carefully. So, he said, taking a sip of his wine, I hear you've been busy. I have, I said, a small smile playing on my lips. I've been working on a project. A big project, from what I hear, he said, his eyes scanning the room. Mark tells me you've bought a house, a nice one. It's a beautiful house, I said. It's a wedding gift, for Mark and Ashley. He raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise in his expression. That's a very generous gift. I didn't realize you were so close. The subtext was clear. He was still assessing me, still trying to figure out where I fit in. We're close enough, I said, looking him straight in the eye, "And I want my son to be happy. I want him to have a place to call home, a place where he can build a family." He nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. He seemed to have a new respect for me, a respect born of my financial power. It was a shallow victory, but a victory nonetheless. Later in the evening, after the toasts and the speeches, I stood up. The room fell silent. Mark and Ashley looked at me, their faces full of a nervous anticipation. "I just wanted to say a few words," I began, my voice clear and strong. "I want to thank everyone for being here, for celebrating with us, and I want to say how proud I am of my son, Mark. He's grown into a wonderful man, and I know he's going to be a great husband." I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment of truth. "And for my son and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, Ashley, I have a small gift. It's not much, just a token of my love and support. I know you've been looking for a place to call your own, a place where you can start your new life. So I hope this will help." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a key to a new home. "This is a key to the house on Maple Street. It's yours, it's your home, and I hope it brings you all the happiness in the world." The room erupted in applause. Mark's eyes were filled with tears, and he came over and hugged me. Ashley looked shocked, her face a mixture of surprise and a strange grudging acceptance. She walked over to me, her hand trembling as she took the key. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you so much." I looked into her eyes, and for the first time I saw something different. It wasn't just greed or pride. It was a flicker of something new. Maybe it was respect, or maybe it was just a recognition of my power. Either way, it was a step forward. The rest of the night was a celebration. People came up to me, shaking my hand, telling me how generous I was. I felt a sense of pride, of vindication. I had won. I had gotten my dignity back. I had shown them all that I was a force to be reckoned with. But as I drove home, a new thought began to form in my mind. The house was a powerful symbol, but it wasn't a solution. It was a bandage on a deep wound. The real work was still ahead of us. We still had to mend the broken trust, rebuild the shattered relationships. The house was a gesture, but love was the real prize, and I had a long way to go before I could be sure I had won that. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a new beginning. I woke up with a mix of emotions, a little nervousness, a lot of hope, and a deep-seated desire for things to finally be right. The events of the rehearsal dinner had changed everything. The tension was still there, but it was now overlaid with a new, fragile layer of respect. I arrived at the church a little early, the scent of fresh flowers filling the air. Mark was there, looking handsome and a little nervous in his tuxedo. I walked up to him and put a hand on his shoulder. "You ready for this, son?" I asked, a smile on my face. He took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be, Dad. Thanks for everything. I mean it. Not just for the house, for everything. For being my dad." My heart swelled. That was the apology I had been waiting for. It wasn't a formal apology, but it was from the heart. "You're a good man, Mark. Your mother would be so proud of you," I said, a lump forming in my throat. He nodded, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly as Ashley's mother, Carol, came up to us, a clipboard in her hand. "Mark, we need you for some photos, family photos," she said, her voice brisk. She looked at me, a flicker of something in her eyes I couldn't quite decipher. "And you too, Mr. Thompson, please join us." The words, so simple and ordinary, felt like a monumental victory. I walked over to the group, a photographer already set up, a huge camera in his hand. I saw David, Ashley's father, give me a small, almost imperceptible nod. I was no longer an outsider. I was a part of the family. The formal photos were a whirlwind of smiles, flashes and poses. Ashley, in her beautiful white gown, looked stunning. She smiled at me, a real smile this time, not the forced, tense one from before. "Thank you for being here," she said, her voice soft. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, and I meant it. The ceremony was beautiful, a perfect blend of solemnity and joy. Watching my son stand at the altar, looking at the woman he loved, I felt a deep sense of peace. He had found his person, his partner, and I, in a strange roundabout way, had found my way back into his life. The reception was a joyous celebration. I danced with some of Ashley's aunts. I had a long, quiet conversation with David, and I watched as Mark and Ashley danced their first dance as husband and wife. As I watched them, I felt a deep sense of contentment. The house, the conflict, the pain, it all seemed to have served a purpose. It had brought us to this moment, a moment of true reconciliation. Later in the evening, I found myself standing on the patio, looking out at the city lights. Mark came up to me, a glass of champagne in his hand. "Dad," he said, "I have to ask you something." I turned to him. "What is it, son?" "The house. It's perfect. More than we could have ever dreamed of. But I feel like I owe you so much. I feel like I'm a guest in my own life. I feel like I didn't earn this." I put a hand on his shoulder. "Mark, you don't owe me anything. This is a gift, not a loan. It's a gift from a father to his son. It's a new beginning, a place for you and Ashley to build your own life. And you did earn it. You earned it by being the man you are. You earned it by being my son." He smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Thank you, Dad, for everything. I love you." "I love you too, son," I said, and we hugged. The rest of the night was filled with laughter and dancing. The wedding was a success. The family was reunited. The future was bright. But as I drove home, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. The house was theirs, but the challenge was just beginning. The real work was in the everyday, in the small acts of kindness and love that would define our relationship going forward. I had to let go of the pain of the past and embrace the possibility of the future. The house was a symbol, but love was the real foundation. The first few weeks of Mark and Ashley's new life were a whirlwind of moving boxes, new furniture, and decorating decisions. They were so happy, so full of energy, and so grateful. Ashley would call me with pictures of the new patio furniture she'd bought or the colors she'd chosen for the living room. It was a new and welcome ritual. I had gone from being a pariah to being a trusted advisor, a consultant on all things home-related. But even in the midst of this new, fragile piece, I could feel the undercurrents of something else. The weight of the gift. The house, so full of promise, was also a silent observer of our every interaction. It was a constant reminder of our past conflict and a constant pressure to keep the peace. One afternoon I went to the house to help Mark with some yard work. We were raking leaves, the sun warm on our backs. "So," I said, leaning on my rake, "how are things going?" "Really?" Mark sighed, a tired sound. "It's good, Dad, really good, but it's a lot. The house is a lot. Ashley's family, they keep coming over. Her mother has all these ideas about how we should decorate. She wants to choose the furniture, the paint colors, everything. It's like we're not allowed to make our own decisions. Ashley just goes along with it because she doesn't want to cause any problems." I felt a familiar frustration. "Mark, this is your house. You and Ashley's house. You have to tell them to back off. You can't let them run your life." "I know, Dad, I know, but it's not that simple. Ashley says her mother is just trying to help, that this is just how their family is. She says we have to be grateful for the house and we shouldn't complain about anything." My heart sank. The gift, which I had intended as a symbol of freedom, had become a source of new constraints. Ashley and her family were using my generosity as leverage, a way to control my son. "Mark," I said, my voice low and firm, "that is not what this house is about. I didn't give you this house so that you would be beholden to anyone. I gave you this house so that you could be free. Free to make your own decisions, free to build your own life." He looked at me, a look of anguish on his face. "I know, Dad. I know, but how do I say that? How do I tell Ashley's mom to stop? She's a good person. She's just a little overbearing." "You have to be a man, son," I said, the words coming from my gut. "You have to stand up for yourself and for your wife. You have to tell them that you appreciate their help, but that you want to do things your own way. This is your life, not theirs." He nodded, a determined look on his face. "You're right, Dad. I'm going to do it. I'm going to talk to Ashley tonight. We're going to set some boundaries." I felt a surge of pride. This was the Mark I knew, the man I had raised. He was finally standing up for himself. But the next day I got a call from Mark. His voice was full of defeat. "It didn't go well, Dad," he said. "Ashley got upset. She said I was being ungrateful. She said I was choosing you over her family. She said if I don't appreciate the help, maybe we should just sell the house." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The house, the symbol of our reconciliation, was now a weapon. It was a constant source of friction, a silent, beautiful obstacle in their new life. "Mark," I said, my voice full of concern, "that's not right, that's not fair. She's manipulating you." "I know, Dad. I know. But what do I do? I don't want to fight with her. I don't want to start our marriage off with a fight." "You have to decide what's more important, son. Peace at any price or a life of your own. This is not about a house anymore. This is about your future. This is about you becoming your own man. And you have to do it, Mark. You have to do it for yourself, for your own happiness." The conversation ended on a somber note. I was worried. The house, which I had thought would bring us all closer, was now a wedge, pushing my son and his new wife further apart. My grand gesture had backfired, and I had a feeling this was only the beginning. The weeks that followed were a cold war. Mark was silent, but his occasional texts were curt and distant. Ashley's social media was full of pictures of the house, of her family, of her and Mark, but I was conspicuously absent. The polite truce had ended. The house, which was meant to be a symbol of love and reconciliation, had become a battlefield. One afternoon I was at my condo reading a book when I heard a knock on the door. I opened it and was surprised to see Ashley standing there. She was alone. Her face was pale and her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked exhausted. "Ashley," I said, a little surprised, "is everything okay?" She shook her head, a tear rolling down her cheek. "No," she said, her voice a whisper. "Nothing is okay." I stepped back, letting her in. She walked into my living room, her hands clasped together, her posture rigid. She looked at the picture on my desk, the one of Mark and me on a fishing trip when he was a boy. She ran a hand over the frame, her face filled with a strange mixture of envy and sadness. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice cracking, "about the house." "What about it?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mark, he told me. He told me everything, about the photos, about the money, about how he feels like he's not a man, about how he feels like he's losing himself." I sat down, my knees weak. "What did he say?" "He said that he loves me, but that he can't live like this. He said he can't live a life where he's constantly being torn between me and his father. He said that he has to be his own man. And he said that he wants to sell the house." My breath caught in my throat. "Sell the house? Why?" "Because it's too much," she said, her voice full of a sudden, raw emotion. "It's too much pressure. It's too much of a reminder of everything. He says he wants to start over, a new house, a new life, just the two of us. He says we need to do this on our own. He says we need to earn our own life." I looked at her, my mind reeling. The house, the beautiful, perfect house I had poured my heart and soul into, the house that was supposed to bring us all together. My grand gesture, my big surprise, had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. "And what do you think?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked at me, and for the first time I saw the real Ashley, not the controlling, manipulative, ambitious Ashley, but the scared, vulnerable, lost young woman underneath. "I don't know," she said, her voice full of a raw honesty. "I'm so lost. My family, they've always been so involved. My mother, my father, they've always told me what to do, what to think, and I just went along with it. I never questioned it. I never thought about what I wanted. I just did what they told me to do, and I brought all of that into my marriage, and I'm ruining it." Tears streamed down her face. She was a different person from the one I had known. This was a young woman who was finally seeing the truth about her life, about her choices, about her future. "Mark, he's right," she said, her voice full of conviction. "I was wrong. I was wrong about the photos. I was wrong about the house. I was wrong about everything. I used to think that a big house, was the most important thing, but it's not. It's not the house, it's the home. And you can't build a home on a foundation of resentment. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a raw, honest regret, and for the first time I believed her. It wasn't an apology for a mistake, it was an apology for a way of life. I walked over to her and put an arm around her, a gesture of comfort. She leaned into me, and for a moment we were just two people, sharing a moment of sadness and a moment of hope. "It's going to be okay, Ashley," I said, my voice soft. "It's going to be okay. It's a house. We can sell it. We can do whatever you want to do. The important thing is that you and Mark are happy, that you're a family, and that you have a new beginning." She nodded, her head on my shoulder. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of a fragile hope. "Thank you so much." I knew this wasn't the end of our journey, but it was a crucial turning point. The house, the very symbol of our conflict, was now the catalyst for our reconciliation. My grand gesture had failed, but in its failure it had brought my family closer than ever before. It had forced us all to confront our demons, to face the truth, and to choose love over pride. And for the first time, I had a feeling that we were finally on the right path. The decision to sell the house on Maple Street was a difficult one, but it was a unanimous one. Mark and Ashley had a serious conversation, and they both realized that the house, beautiful as it was a constant reminder of our past conflict. It was a beautiful prison, a gilded cage. They wanted to start over, to build a life on their own terms. We put the house on the market, and it sold within a week. The new owners were a young family with two small children, a couple who looked at the house with the same wide-eyed hope that Mark and Ashley had once had. I knew the house was going to a good home. It had served its purpose. It had brought my family back to me. With the money from the sale, Mark and Ashley bought a small two-bedroom bungalow on the other side of town. It was a fixer-upper, a place with good bones and a lot of potential. There was no grand porch, no sprawling backyard, but there was something even more important, a sense of shared purpose. They were going to build this home together, on their own. I helped them with the renovation, but this time it was different. This time I was a partner, not a benefactor. I helped them choose the paint colors, I helped them lay the new tile, and I helped them build a small deck in the backyard. Every day, I watched them work together, laughing, arguing, making up. They were a team. They were a family. One Saturday afternoon, we were sitting on the deck, exhausted but happy. Mark had his arm around Ashley, and they were looking at the house, a sense of pride in their eyes. "We did it," Mark said, a smile on his face. "We did it on our own. Well, mostly on our own." He looked at me, a grateful look in his eyes. "Thank you, Dad, for everything, for helping us, for giving us the push we needed, for helping us find our way." "You found your way, son," I said, my voice full of emotion. "You found your way on your own. I was just there to help, and to learn a few things myself." Ashley looked at me, a soft smile on her face. "You taught us a lot. You taught us that love is more important than things, and you taught us that family isn't about blood. It's about the people who are there for you, who are willing to fight for you, who are willing to do anything to make sure you're happy, even if they have to buy your dream house just to teach you a lesson." We all laughed. The bitterness was gone. The resentment was gone. All that was left was a deep, abiding love. The next week I was at my condo reading a book when my phone rang. It was Mark. "Hey, Dad," he said. "We have a bit of a problem. A big one." "What is it, son?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Well," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Ashley and I have been trying to organize the photos from the wedding, the professional ones, and we can't seem to decide which ones to frame. There are just so many good ones of you." I smiled, a huge, genuine smile. "I'm glad to hear that, son." "We are too," he said, and I could hear Ashley's voice in the background, a low murmur of a conversation that I couldn't make out. But I didn't need to. I knew what they were saying. They were talking about me, they were talking about the pictures, they were talking about the man who was now a part of their lives, and not just on the sidelines. The photos, the very thing that had started this whole mess, had become a symbol of our reconciliation. They were no longer a source of pain, but a source of joy. The house was gone, but the home, the real home, was finally being built. And it was a home built not on wealth or on grand gestures, but on the foundation of love, forgiveness, and a deep-seated respect for each other. It was a home that was finally, truly ours, all of us.